I'm so proud to introduce you to Devon. Devon has just inhaled all the data regarding unicorns, and that's not the horse with the with the horn, but it's a term that was coined around companies that had reached a certain status, and he's going to go into that. And I feel like Boston is sort of stuck on the mythology of Bill Gates and Zuckerberg, and they haven't kind of tracked all the unicorns that have come out of, especially Harvard and MIT, the last decade, especially around AI. And his analysis is one of the best that I've seen. And I wanted to bring that to you. And this is going to be an interview, and Devon has a few slides. But this is extraordinary. And I think it's important to start socializing this data because Boston punches way above its weight level. Now, some of the founders may go to Silicon Valley or may go to Austin or Florida or Puerto Rico or Portugal or somewhere else. But there's a lot starting here, and you all should know about it because it's a really exciting story. So, ladies and gentlemen, Devon, can you maybe build on that story about how do you define a unicorn, and what are you seeing?
So a unicorn is a company that achieves $1 billion valuation in under 10 years. That's fascinating, but what's even more fascinating is that in the world of AI, the more storied term is a decacorn, a company that achieves a $10 billion valuation in under 10 years. And in some of my data and analysis, I'll share some more on this with you today. My name's Devon Triplett. I'm an AI researcher, founder, investor. I've spent the last 4 years obsessed with the data and insights that underpin the success of the Harvard and MIT startup ecosystem. I've curated a few reports, many over the last few years. I decided to up my game a little bit and officially publish reports. One titled the 2025 Harvard and MIT AI Unicorn Trends Report, which I will be giving you guys the early preview to today. And then another one on the economic impact of Harvard-founded unicorns since 2005, which you will not be privy to quite yet, but hopefully we can do another talk and would love to go through that with you.
Great. Can you go to your first slide and tell us what we're looking at?
So here's what we're looking at. The through line of what John just said is that tech revolutions build cities. You have steam that built Manchester, and then you had cars that built Detroit. You had silicone that built Silicon Valley. You had the internet and digital age that eventually built San Francisco. And today we're living through the revolution of intelligence. And that revolution of intelligence is being built right here in Boston and Cambridge, which is really fascinating, but there's not a lot of awareness to what's going on. My report that I'm sharing with you today is based off of the 7 big insights that we'll dive into. The first big insight is just the sheer productivity. Harvard and MIT now have 26 AI unicorns worth $133 billion. And we'll get into some comparisons later on.
I see you have Perplexity up there, and Johnny Ho has been a speaker of mine. He's the co-founder and chief strategist of Perplexity, and he went to Harvard. He lives in New York. Ervand, who's also been a speaker of mine, he is the CEO. He's based in San Francisco. He did not get into MIT, and he's upset about it, but he's okay. He went to Berkeley. So how do you give him half a point, or are you giving him full point, given that they're 2 co-founders?
We're giving them a full point. So full disclosure, this data is based on Harvard and MIT affiliates. We can't say graduates because what you'll see in the trends is that suddenly there is a lot of dropouts that are producing a ton of value from this ecosystem.
And Mercor, which is going up like a rocket ship, the founders, the CEO went to Georgetown and the CTO went to Harvard. They all dropped out within a week of matriculating. They're like, we have no time for this school thing. So how I think technically a dropout, you have to finish the whole year. So I'm curious, are you seeing some trends in terms of how long kids are sticking around?
We're certainly seeing some trends, and this is why we went with the term affiliates. I think it's safe to say that these are all affiliates of these universities. So yeah, what are some of the trends? If you look here on this side, you'll see 6 companies that are now Decacorns. We talked about the difference in a unicorn and a decacorn. What you're seeing on this screen is 6 Decacorns that have been founded by Harvard and MIT affiliates. Now, why are we calling them affiliates? Well, 5 of these companies were founded by under 25-year-old founders, most of who are dropouts and did not complete their time. Scale AI, this company has been all in the news. Alexander Wang went to MIT, dropped out, and his company today is worth $29 billion post a deal he completed with Mark Zuckerberg.
Yeah, so he founded a company, and instead of doing an acqui-hire, they just hired him?
The deal was a little bit complicated, but Mark Zuckerberg purchased 49% of Scale AI.
So it was an acqui-hire, technically.
It wasn't technically an acqui-hire.
And Cursor, those are 3 MIT guys, right?
Cursor, 3 MIT guys. Cursor guys actually finished. They started working on Cursor when they were seniors. Right when they graduate, they hounded every Boston VC firm to give them money, eventually went to the West Coast. Today, Cursor's worth $9.9 billion.
And Windsurf is very interesting, a competitor to Cursor. I think it's two MIT guys and a Carnegie Mellon, or a Caltech guy. They used to be called, but they were bought by OpenAI for $3 billion, but then that deal fell apart and they got bought by Google. So that I don't know, there's some interesting stuff there. I don't know if you want to elaborate on that.
Yeah, my understanding is
because that may set some precedent here.
Windsurf was actually purchased by another company on this list, which was Cognition. So Cognition purchased Windsurf in another sort of acqui-hire type of deal that had happened.
But aren't they in Google, inside Google, some of them? Yeah,
that was another very complicated deal, just similar to Scale AI.
Yeah,
but
and then full disclosure, I'm an advisor to Liquid AI. That's an example where Danielle LaRousse, the head of CSAIL, the largest lab at MIT, she had a lab and recruited these 2 Austrians, a PhD and a master's student. They came into her lab and she connected them with one of her PhD students, and they formed that company. So that's some not undergrads. All right, well, let's go to the next slide.
The next slide is more, because there's 26, and they don't all fit on a page. So here are some of the others that are probably less familiar to you guys, but still some really great companies on this list.
And just going back to my original thesis is, we saw the social network, that Aaron Sorkin helped with it, but the book was written by a local here in Boston, Ben Mesrick. We've seen that movie. We know, Bill Gates' story, but how many people did not know a lot of the companies that we're showing here? Yeah, and yet, that's part of our region's competitive advantage. We may have invented the lighthouse or fluff, things that go way back, but we're also inventing these kind of things.
So the next big insight is around the democratization and the compounding nature of AI. And what you're seeing on this screen is that these AI native companies are scaling way faster than historical precedents and non-AI companies. The average time to $1 billion valuation is just 4 years in today's paradigm. The median time is 3. And I've mapped all of the companies on
so
this
valuation
slide.
Doesn't equal customers and doesn't equal so
there's some caveats to this, of course, but nonetheless, these are the valuations that were achieved by these companies in the various timeframes that you see on this slide.
All right, let's go to the next slide.
The next slide is around the capital efficiency of these companies. You see that they're scaling way faster, and they tend to scale with about 50% less capital today than what we've seen from previous non-AI peers. So on this screen, you'll see the benchmark of the Harvard MIT AI companies. Then you'll see the previous benchmark from my previous data of the same capital intensity metric for non-AI companies in my same data set. So these companies are scaling way faster with far more capital efficiency. And again, this is thanks to a lot of the intelligence that's able to be baked into these companies that are AI native. Now, this one's fascinating. Every year, Forbes posts their top 50 AI startups. And I decided to scrape the list to see what percentage of them were Harvard and MIT. And the number came out to be right above 35% of these AI unicorns are founded by Harvard or MIT alumni. Now, we talked about affiliates versus graduates or dropouts, and this slide kind of brings home that point. What you're looking at on this slide is the AI unicorns from Harvard and MIT founded by under 25-year-old founders, and then those that were founded by dropouts. You'll also see the valuation on these slides.
And what's interesting about this is while Devon did do an internship at McKinsey, he didn't take this from like a big consultancy's report. He did this all himself, and he is all of 23. So he's one of these young Turks that represent the next generation. All right, go to the next slide.
People like to wonder if these were edge case founders that have built these companies and achieved these valuations. And I like to say that there's a very strong pipeline of under 25-year-old founders that are also doing incredible work and well on their way to adding and contributing more to this list. So I like to show the pipeline here as well. Now, the next slide John really likes, and the question is, who's backing these founders? Who's crazy enough to back a founder under 25 years old and give them millions of dollars with hopes to get a venture-like return? The answer is it's the best firms in the world. It's the Andreessen Horowitz, the Y Combinators, the Accels, Lightspeed Capital, General Catalyst are some of the biggest backers of these unicorn founders from Harvard and MIT.
So two facts is Y Combinator actually started in Cambridge by Paul Graham and went west, and General Catalyst there founded in Cambridge behind the Charles Hotel is their offices. You know, they now have a very vibrant West Coast office, but you know, Boston is here.
So what's hot? What type of companies are they building? And that's what this slide was intended to answer. There's not a lot of similarities. They're building everything from hardware to developer tools, trading and inference. Productivity is a bucket that probably pales in comparison to some of the others, but is still very valuable. And one that I think is really interesting is the search engines and search. Perplexity, Open Evidence, Exa, Delve are all companies that were founded right here in Cambridge, which is pretty fascinating.
Alta Vista was a search engine that was dominant that Digital had created, and Lycos was another Boston-backed search engine that didn't make it, but they could have been the Google. So we have a history in this region of creating things that could make it and didn't, and some that did make it, and you know, it'll be interesting to see, you know, who wins.
Superlatives. I gave an award for various categories. Most valuable currently is Scale AI. Highest known ARR is Cursor. This was as of late September, so I think now their ARR is substantially higher than that. The youngest billion-dollar founder is the founder of Mercor. He's currently 21 years old.
Brendan Foodie. Yep.
It's a $10 billion company. He's 21 years old. Youngest at time of founding was the founder of Scale AI, Alexander Wang. The fastest to $1 billion was the Botco, came out of MIT. Robots achieved $1 billion valuation in less than 1 year from founding. In my opinion, they also have the greatest potential to be a $1 trillion plus company, hence the valuation happening so soon.
So we know the story of the Gilded Age and JP Morgan and the steel magnates and people out of Pittsburgh. You know, these are going to be the next generation of leaders, assuming, you know, there isn't an AI bubble and these companies don't crash and burn and become irrelevant.
10 predictions for the future to the extent you're interested. You know, I think we're going to see a lot of productivity come out of this ecosystem. We're living through the age of intelligence, and the age of intelligence is ironically or unironically being built right here in Cambridge and Boston. This is an exciting time for our community. This is an exciting time for entrepreneurs just across the river. And I think the future of Cambridge, Boston could be built off of the new tech revolution that is intelligence today. So these 10 predictions for the future are kind of where I believe the puck's headed.
The last thing I'll say is I've talked to a lot of very successful serial entrepreneurs, Paul English, who founded Kayak, and I say, you know, today, how many coders, how big would your team need to be to do what you did? And they all lament that, wow, I could have done what I did with thousands with 10 people or 5 people. You know, whether that's a good thing or not, I think we're entering an era where you could be younger, with a more lean team, you could do things. I also think Uber was 9 years into Web 2, that just because we have AI, we don't necessarily know what to do with it. And there's going to be a lot of innovators that are going to see opportunities, like some of these people. And this is a story that I'm excited to share. And this is just the beginning of Devon. You know, he's excited to make this content accessible. He's trying to figure out, how, you know, should he make a nonprofit? You know, should he just be a researcher, publish reports? or how to use this for an investment thesis. But ladies and gentlemen, Devon.